The Dodgers win it all. Yamamoto dominates, the Blue Jays fall just short, and now the real chaos begins. Welcome to the offseason, where every team supposedly has a chance, and we all know they for damn sure have choices at least.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Locked On Pirates, your daily dose of black and gold talk. I'm Gary Morgan. Today, we're diving into the World Series aftermath, the off-season calendar, and a little segment I like to call My Way, Cheap Way, Pirates Way. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. So let's do the World Series recap first, huh? Got to talk about it. I figured if I delay it at all, it's just going to get more stale. I'd rather talk about it while it's fresh. Dodgers win in 7. For those of you that didn't watch this World Series, before I get into some of the hits and individual stats and talking points, let's just lay it out. One of the best World Series I've ever watched. Entertaining from start to finish. Both teams fought hard. 2 extra inning contests. Every inning, the drama was just ratcheted up more and more. Incredible efforts from people. Down performances from others that you didn't think you could survive. It was an unbelievable World Series. And I saw immediately an awful lot of negativity about the Dodgers. And listen, if you've listened to this show for a while, which, hey, we're in the off season now, most of you probably listen a lot if you're still here. You know, I've come out against hating the Dodgers or really even feeling like they've done anything wrong. They follow the rules that Major League Baseball allows. Do I think they're stupid rules? Yes. Do I think they're self-destructive rules? Absolutely, I do. I do. But if I had a team that was capable of doing anything they wanted in order to try to win and still make a lot of money, I want them to do everything they could possibly do to win. I'm sorry, that's the case. I knew my Penguins were forcing themselves into at least hairy financial situation. I didn't know it would lead to bankruptcy. I was like 15, 16 years old, in the 91, 92 era back then when they were just bringing in everybody that had ever been a star to be a part of the Pittsburgh Penguins. I knew what was happening, kind of, but I wanted them to do everything they could possibly do to win, and they did. That's all Dodgers fans want too. They've made some really stupid comments about, Dave Roberts in particular, if we're ruining the game, let's go ruin the game. It was a dumb comment, tone deaf comment, but it's not his fault either. Why in the world would any fan base want to tell any team to not do the absolute best they can do? Why would you want that? Even in a cap league, you wouldn't want that. I mean, it's frustrating to watch if you're from the perch of a team that you follow, like the Pirates or the Reds or the A's, or it's not fair. It hasn't been fair in a really, really long time. And all the Dodgers and Mets, for that matter, and all they've really done is just made it a little bit extra unfair. That's all. And it's not their fault. Again, the rules are the rules. Yeah, they have a part of that. They vote on those rules. But let's not act like they had a hostile takeover and they got 28 of the 30 votes when it comes to like passing something like that. They didn't. And a lot of teams that felt like they could survive under this system and make it work. And the Dodgers just did something uncharacteristic, really, for teams in their position. A lot of time, like if you're the one team that can do something. Like the deferral of Shohei Ohtani. Let's talk about that. They're a hedge fund. And the way MLB is set up, well, you have to be able to produce the value of his contract in cold, hard cash every year in order to have a deferred contract that big. Other teams have to do this too. The Mets have to show every single year that they have the money to pay off Bobby Bonilla tomorrow for the life of what they owe him. You have to do it. That's part of the rules of Major League Baseball. Well, most teams can produce 20, 30 million. So if you've deferred 20 or 30 million out 10, 15 years, it's not a big deal. It doesn't catch news. It's easy to do. You liquidate a couple things here and there if you have to. The Dodgers, they just transfer money within their hedge fund and show it off. They never have to take it out. And because it's in their accruing interest and other investment avenues, they'll truthfully never pay a red cent for Shohei Ohtani. They'll have made all their money back and more. It's a situation that isn't fair to the rest of the league. That doesn't make me hate the Dodgers. If anything, it makes me, as a fan, respect them. It's exactly what I would want them to do. Yamamoto was incredible in this series. Incredible. I just can't speak enough for what he did, not only in game 2 with the shutout complete game victory, but what he did in game 6 to just ensure that his team had a chance to move forward. And then he comes back in game 7 and goes 2+ innings into extra innings to sew it up. Unbelievable performance. Well-deserved MVP. He was terrific. Honestly, the Dodgers bats didn't show up as much as you would want them to for what you paid for, right? But the pitching was just stellar, and they masked the bullpen woes that they were having with starters. It was almost the polar opposite of what Dave Roberts had to do last year in order to win the World Series, where he had to lean on the bullpen so heavily because they were so crippled by starter injuries. Well, this year was kind of the opposite. It wasn't as injury driven, but it was performance driven, and the starters were ready and the relievers weren't. The Jays pushed them to the brink. Vlad Jr. had 28 hits. Barger had I think 30. I think that's the most ever in a World Series. 15 RBIs for Vladdy in this postseason, though. It's not like he was a shrinking violet. Dodgers hit just 203 in this series. It's the worst mark by a champion since 1966. Game 7 featured homers, drama, a little bit of a bench clearing moment, if you want to count it as that. It's one of the best World Series I've ever seen. Again, Yamamoto is the first Japanese-born pitcher to win World Series MVP. I think if you just want to rate this, take all the sideshow stuff away, all the implications about what it means for the league, everything like that, you want to take all that aside and just examine the baseball on the field. Yeah, this was a killer series. These two teams were very evenly matched. The Blue Jays, I think Trey Savage just coming out of nowhere changed things for the Blue Jays. It gave them the ability to have an extra layer of that type of starter that could shut down the opponent. They didn't have it going in. I mean, that was not a sure thing heading into the playoffs that they were going to have him, certainly not have him as featured as he was. He was brilliant. Brilliant. That splitter from that angle is unhittable. If he can continue to throw that, he's going to have a long career. I just was floored by the performance without it. If you take Yasevich out of that team, I don't think that they're even in the World Series. I mean, they needed that step up performance. They needed IKF to step up and fill in for Bichette when he was hurt. Speaking of IKF, I got to go back to that 8th inning in Game 7. couple things with that. He was at third base. Remember, he got thrown out on a force play at home, and it was bang bang. Will Smith almost missed that plate. I'm talking like we're talking a half of a fraction of a second from that being a Blue Jays World Series victory potentially. But IKF chose to slide on a force play at home, where I think he probably would have been better off if he just kept running. And that's part one. The second part, he didn't get a great jump. Boy, just a slightly better jump from third, and the Blue Jays may very well be World Series champions. The play that Andy Pages made in center field to save that game too, clutch, unbelievable. He ran over Kike Hernandez. That was something. So many ins and outs of this series. I really hope you guys were able to put away your dislike for the Dodgers and what they mean to this game as far as what they represent financially, and able to take in some good baseball, because at the end of the day, that's what we're here for, is good baseball, right? The World Series certainly was that. When we come back, it's officially the off season, and I'm going to do something that I think you all need, whether you know it or not. A primer for what's coming up in the off season. Let's talk about dates, important things we need to keep our eyes on. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride that hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to the fourth quarter big comeback. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game interesting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com and sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Hey, welcome back to Locked On Pirates. Make sure you smash that subscribe button, drop a like, give me a comment. You everydayers, I want to thank you again, big time. You guys have really stuck with it through the beginning of the Pirates off season. And now that we're to the actual off season, we can start having some different conversations, which is always fun. But let's start by understanding what's coming at us. Baseball's off season is in some ways its own season, full of jargon and deadlines and decisions. And I think here's a few things fans need to know. Free agency is going to begin 5 days after the World Series ended. Now, because it ended after midnight, I'm not 100% sure how they'll count that. I'm sure you'll see it, but it'll be this week. Trades resume immediately after the World Series, so that's already in effect. Options, this is both team and player options. They have to be exercised 5 days post-series. Qualifying offers must be made within 5 days. That's players that are going to be entering free agency that a team would like to keep. You can put in what's called a qualifying offer, and it's a certain percentage of the highest paid players at said position. It's a lot like the NFL's franchise tag, except it has no teeth. It's the same methodology for keeping a player, where you would pay them in the top upper echelon of what that position's making, but it doesn't come with the power of we've offered this and you have no choice but to accept it that the NFL does. So the players can still go, and what that means is if you've offered a qualifying offer, then the other team that signs that player, well, the team that offered the qualifying offer gets a draft pick as compensation. You can sometimes get compensation just for other things like revenue sharing and your lot in life, basically, and the Pirates will get those like they always do. Those are what you call like the comp B picks and whatnot. These qualifying offers, they'll actually get you an extra first round pick sometimes an extra second round pick, depending on the level of the free agent. They're risky moves. In other words, you don't want to offer a qualifying offer to somebody. I'm trying to pick somebody that it would really matter for. Well, let's just be stupid about it. Let's say Tommy Pham. He's going to be a free agent, right? Well, you would never offer a qualifying offer for Tommy Pham, because your qualifying offer for Tommy Pham is going to be way more than anybody's ever going to pay Tommy Pham. So, of course, he's going to take it. So, of course, you're going to get stuck with it. So, of course, you're going to pay a crap ton more than market value for him. Okay. Now, other reasons you might not do it, it could be just that somebody is going to command, because of a position getting out of control, somewhere in like the 18 to $20 million range. But really, this is a player that's probably worth about 15 a year. You're going to be much better letting him hit free agency and trying to negotiate something with him. That's all. The real qualifying offer questions are usually guys like Shohei Ohtani is going into free agency. Of course you're doing that. Juan Soto is going into free agency. Of course you're doing that. You know what I mean? When and if Paul Skeens would reach free agency from Pittsburgh, say the Pirates don't trade him ever, and he just expires his time here, you can bet for damn sure the Pirates will put in a qualifying offer for him. Yes, even the Pirates, even if that figure is like $30 million. Because the likelihood of him taking that 1-year deal and staying in Pittsburgh is very small. And you cannot afford to pass up on the qualifying pick that you would get back. Non-tender deadline, it's going to be November 21st this year. That's when teams go through their arbitration eligible list, which we'll talk about a little bit more in segment 3 as I start doing show prep for the 3 segments I told you were going to come this week. I'm going to do one episode where we talk about what I would do, one episode where I talk about what I think the Pirates will do, and one episode where I think the Pirates could cheap out and do something completely off the wall. So we're going to discuss that a little bit more in segment 3, just to kind of get ready for it and understand where we are. But non-tender deadline is going to come up in that, because that's when you make a lot of those arbitration decisions. The Rule 5 draft will be on December 10th, held at the winter meetings this year. Speaking of the winter meetings, they will be in Orlando December 8th through the 11th. The draft lottery, which the Pirates are in and could get the number 1 overall pick again this year, will be held on December 9th. Listen, I mean, no matter what you think of Ben Cherington, no matter what you think of the Pirates or how they've done, you want to root for that draft lottery. You're in it. You have an opportunity to get another super high pick. And your Buccos have the 3rd highest possibility of winning that draft pick. Percentage is a little over 16%, which doesn't sound great, but considering the best is 27% with the Chicago White Sox, take it where it is. It's a great thing if you can get it. It's a great thing if you can get it. The fastest way to add talent to this baseball team, the cheapest way to add talent, the best way to get the very top talents is to be as high up in the draft lottery as you can possibly be. And again, MLB makes the rules. Live by the rules and do the best you can with those rules, right? You want to win. You want to be as top to that as you can. And they've done some really good things in the draft recently. Even if you don't agree with all of them, they've really produced a lot of players that are looking very promising. A lot more than we've seen. The winter meetings are officially where I think a lot of fans think trades happen and trade setup happens. And I think that was a lot more true maybe a decade ago. But COVID really changed a lot of things. It really did. And think about just your own life. If you have a desk job and you're somebody that kind of got forced to work from home for a while, how many of your companies decided to just leave you at home? I mean, you started out planning to go back. I'm sure that's what you wanted to do, and you're going to get back to normal. But then they repurposed your office space, or they hired some other people that make a lot more sense to be in the office than you do, and things changed, right? Well, the winter meetings have changed too. I mean, these general managers, they've always had the ability to talk to each other. They always have, but they also, are reluctant to do certain things over phone calls. These are skeptical people. These are people that don't believe they're not being listened in on. These are people that don't necessarily always trust what's right in front of them. Well, they were forced to for 2 years to communicate with each other. They use Zoom calls, and you know, a lot of those fears and beliefs about working from home or doing things, without being face to face in the major leagues, well, they've changed with COVID, and they're probably not coming back. So the winter meetings aren't what they used to be. They're just not. A lot of people will go. They're more of a meet and greet, really, for people at this point who are free agents looking to make a comeback. Um, like somebody that's probably going to be a popular topic is a guy that you may remember as a former Pirate, Cody Ponce. I don't know if you remember him or not. The Pirates traded with Milwaukee for Cody Ponce um, years ago, and they gave him a shot. He didn't make it. He ended up going over to Japan. Well, he's done really well. He's going to come back. We're talking about an Eric Fetty type here. He's going to get interest, right? Well, a guy like him and his representative, they might be at the winter meetings walking around talking to reps, and only because they've been separated from the process for 3 years while he's been over in Asia playing baseball. I'm not saying that nobody knows who he is, nobody's talked about him, but he's going to want to start having his agent lay down some track for conversations he's going to have with some teams, right? So you're going to see things like that. If there's a giant trade that's about to happen, like, everybody knows Juan Soto is going, not this year, but, in the past, yeah, there's going to be conversations about Juan Soto for sure. If nothing else, his agent's going to be there spewing crap out of his mouth, right? You're going to have that same kind of thing this year for a couple guys. Like somebody will be there talking about Bo Bichette, I'm sure. Somebody will be there talking about, whoever else is the hotness. Kyle Schwarber, whatever. Pete Alonso. Those types of guys will get some conversation. But it's surface top, and I think we've seen the last few years to these bigger guys, they're not necessarily feeling inclined to sign early. They're not afraid to wait. So I think the winter meetings you can probably expect will be relatively a dud. Like, I'm not saying there won't be any cool conversations or whatnot, but I believe too, you're going to start hearing some prep for the upcoming labor negotiations at the end of 2026. And I don't even mean that people will show up there purposefully prepared to talk about it or wanting to make it a big issue. But listen, it becomes a big issue now. We're now in the season of the last year of that CBA. And that puts us officially in the danger zone, whether people want to talk about it or not. If these two sides are too far apart, don't rule out that we're going to get a full season here. Don't rule out that the players will strike at the All-Star break. Don't rule it out. Don't rule out that the owners will lock them out if it looks like they're going to strike. Like, there's no guarantee we finish this season. In the winter meetings, some of those discussions will start coming to light, I think. So that's what that's going to be interesting for. This is the time when teams shape their future. And the Pirates, it's a chance to decide how serious they're going to be about 2026. That's the offseason calendar in a pinch, at least the beginning of it. When we come back, let's start doing a little bit of show prep for the rest of the week. We got to lay down a base of knowledge before we can start talking about what we're going to do, right? Right? I think so. NFL season is back. And honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium, surrounded by fans, cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a real hassle. between K's, long login screens, and prices jumping at checkout, it's frustrating. That's why I use Gametime, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Gametime is fast, easy, and backed by Gametime guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. I pulled up Gametime for last night's Steeler game just a couple hours before it started. Saw tickets on there for about $1.50. Good luck getting those in advance, right? Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. Hey, welcome back to Locked On Pirates. So last week when we did the Halloween episode, aka The Purge, and I wore that mask, which I appreciate you all bearing with me. I listened to it back on audio, and I apologize. Next year, I will try to find a mask that doesn't make me sound like Mushmouth from Fat Albert. I apologize. Anyways, I told you, if you were able to make it out, that I was going to do a segment or 3 segments this week, talking about the off season. I want to do my way. This is basically what I would do with what I have available. I want to do what the Pirates probably will do with what they have available. And then I want to take a completely third track, and it's just the cheap way, which some of you might think is the Pirates way, but I think they probably have a little bit more incentive this year to at least make it look like they've tried. So I do think they'll do some things whether we agree with them or not. So we have to talk numbers and strategy, right? And we have to at least understand what we're working with together before we get into this 3 ways of doing things. Not going to work if you think they're going to spend 160 million and I think 100's the max, right? So we have to come to an understanding of what's real, what's actually going to take place. There's been a couple reports, one from Jason Mackey that he expected the Pirates to stay around 90 million this year. I have not heard that yet. I'm certainly not disputing it. Jason Mackey has more sources than anybody I can think of in the Pirates beat community. And I don't believe that he ever stated that he heard that figure somewhere. I think that's just him guesstimating based on how he feels and where they are and whatnot. I still think 100 million is doable this year. I think it would have been doable this year if they had performed, because they wouldn't have traded off as many guys. They were barreling towards it, actually. They ended up finishing a little under 90 even after their sell-off. So their current payroll, I don't know, let's be less than 100% on this. It's somewhere in the 60 to $65 million range, I would say, right now. You're probably heading into the off season with a pretty clean slate of around 60 to 65. So I think that leaves you about, 30 to 40 million. Now you got the arbitration eligibles here. And if we took them all, which we've discussed already, we're not going to take them all. But if you take all of them, Dennis Santana, Johan Oviedo, Joey Bart, Justin Lawrence, Johan Ramirez, Colin Holderman, O'Neal Cruz, Dowry Moretta, Jack Sawinski, you're talking about a little over $18 million. And if you took that $18 million from what I'm considering to be 60 to 65, you're talking about you're up around 75, almost 80. And that's if you took them all. We're not going to take them all. All right. I'll make those suggestions tomorrow when we start talking about the number, but rest assured, I'm not taking 18 some million dollars from arbitration and throwing it into this pile. I'm not going to decide to bring all those guys back. That's just something that we're all going to have to live with. Okay. So just so we understand the numbers and where we're working with, I'm going to have, before arbitration, a little over $35 million, I'd say, to be safe. Maybe 40. That's before any trades have happened. That's before any arbitration decisions have happened. It's before any signings. It's before anything. It's before even factoring in Kutch. So we all understand where we are for when we have this discussion tomorrow, starting tomorrow. We got to understand where we are, baseline. We can argue about that, and we will as the offseason goes on, why it should be more, why it maybe doesn't matter and it should be less. I mean, we'll talk about what the payroll figure should be. But let's start with what we know to be true. Okay? And for me, that's going to be 100 million is my target budget. And I'm starting with 60 to 65 million right now. So every decision I make is going to have those two numbers locked in as what I'm working with. All right? I think it's going to be a fun conversation. We're going to start tomorrow with what I would do. And then we'll get into what I think the Pirates would do. And then we'll get into what I think would be the cheap way. It's going to spread out over the next 3 shows. We'll do other topics too, because there's other things to discuss. And I don't ever want to make one show all one thing unless it's a super, super important topic. And none of these are, frankly. But that's how we're going to proceed as the week goes on. Love your input as we get through the process. By the time we get to, Friday's show, we'll probably do an AMA just to kind of button up the week. Make a lot of your questions about the things that I present over these next 3 days. Let's have the AMA really kind of help clear this up and put a bow on the entire project. Then we can move into the next thing for the off season. Love doing this. Love planning this stuff out with you, because this is really, you're kind of getting to see behind the curtain a little bit. This is my approach to every off season. This is the way I tackle every off season. I figure out my numbers. I get myself to a point where I understand pretty firmly what I have and don't have. And then I move forward with developing a plan. I don't know how they do it. This is how I do it. And as a show prep, it's not the same as like going out and actually getting the players, but you would think a lot of the exercises kind of overlap, don't they? So let's see what we learn together as the week plays out. I think it's going to be a blast. I really do. That's your sandbox, though. Not huge, big enough to make targeted upgrades, maybe a veteran here or there, bench bat, bullpen arms. I mean, we'll see what happens. It's going to be interesting. The World Series is over. The offseason is here. The Pirates have decisions to make, and, well, we'll be here every step of the way to break it down. We're serious about Pirates baseball because somebody has to be. Let's go Bucks.